Hi, we're back for pie making lesson number 2. And so as you know, in our first lesson, we made our pie dough. We put it in the refrigerator so it would firm up. And then I brought it to room temperature again. And you're going, well, why did I have to chill it in order to bring it back to room temperature? And the reason for that is because we wanted the fat to firm up around the flour so that, again, we're going to get that little explosion that's going to puff up in the oven. Now, what you saw me do right now is I took my flour sifter and I sprinkled my pie rolling mat out with a little bit of flour because it's dough, it's going to stick. So I want that little flour there so it doesn't stick. And then I'm going to sort of just spread it around, and I'm going to take the extra flour that's collected on my hands, and I'm going to actually flour my rolling pin with that so that I have non-stick on both the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to put my pie dough in here. As you know, we put a big disc in the fridge yesterday. I actually cut this disc in half and flattened it out again. And then you just start in the middle, and you just sort of roll up and down a little bit. And then you're going to roll to the sides a little bit and roll to the sides. Sort of like rolling a tortilla. You always want to roll out from the center out. And as you can see, my pie dough is going to stick to the rolling pin. That's perfectly normal. Some people have some sort of special covering that they put on their rolling pin so that it doesn't do that. I'm not a fan of that. I just use a little extra flour. And my pie dough is getting a little bit on the dry side here. You know how yesterday I only used 3 tablespoons instead of the 5 or 6 that they asked for me? And maybe I should have made a little softer dough, because the longer it is in the refrigerator, the drier it gets. And I left it in my fridge overnight because I did that one yesterday morning. And so, oops, and now I put way too much pressure on there and it's stuck with the water. Oh no, pie dough disaster. And right about this point, this is when people give up with their pie dough and they cry and they say, I can't roll out dough and I'm done. And you don't actually have to do that. What you want to do is you want to put just a little bit of water in here. That's why I have a little, I don't know if you can see my little container off to the side here. I'm just dipping my fingers in it, making my pie dough a little bit softer, because again, dough is not a precise measurement. It's more of a texture and feel type thing. And I'm just going to squish it. And again, I'm going to use that grabbing, clumping motion, not the rocking, rolling motion that would develop gluten. And I just want to get a little bit of moisture in my pie dough so that it's not as crumbly. Because people are afraid of making pie dough, and they don't need to. It's dough. If it doesn't do what you want it to do, add some more water or add some more flour till it does what you want it to do. Because every day the dough is different. You can make the exact same pie dough recipe using the exact same down to the ounce measurements, and your dough will behave differently based on the temperature and humidity, and in some cases the altitude. So we're going to try this again. I don't have any flour on here, so I'm going to flour it again. I'm going to spread it. I'm going to recoat my rolling pin, and we're going to try this again. And again, you know, you want to start with a flattened disc. It's okay to use your palm, flatten it out. Some people really like to flatten it out a lot. And then the trick here is that you're always going to start from the middle, and that was a little sticky, so I'm going to put a little more flour on here. Trick is to start from the middle and roll out, and you're not putting too much pressure on here. It's better to roll it over and over and over again than it is to put so much pressure that it sticks. And again, I'm still sticky here, so I'm going to get a little more here, and you'll notice the flour is landing on the pie crust, and that's fine because that's just going to make it roll out a little bit easier. And you just keep rolling and rolling. Oops, that piece of dough just doesn't want to work, so I'm just going to set it to the side there. And you just keep rolling until you get this nice round dough. Now, I've never been able to roll a perfectly round pie crust dough. I know, my mom laughs at me. She can do it. Actually, my aunt can do it one-handed with a baby underneath her arm because she had 9 kids. And, well, I've seen her roll pie dough as she was cooking. She can roll tortillas one-handed, too, with a kid on her arm and another one clinging to the legs. So maybe why I only have 2 kids instead of 9. So you got your pie dough. It's nice and round. And then you're going to take a nice, long, whatever it is you've got. Some people use a butter knife. I use something called a bench knife. And you're going to scrape it up little by little by little. And you don't want to make it too much. And then it's okay at this point. You might be able to fold it over if you need to. And then as you see, the pie dough is moving. So that it's ready to go into the pie crust. And you just want to support it very gently. And I always do the flip thing because it's a little bit easier. And it would have been perfectly round, but school's going to start and I got to go. So anyhow, that's how you roll out one set of pie dough. But, you know, it took a lot of equipment for me to do this. I had to have a bench knife. I had to have a roller. I had to have my fancy little mat, which, by the way, since it's plastic, you're probably wondering, why is it not sliding all over the counter? And the reason for that is because I put a wet towel underneath it. And then when I put the plastic mat on top of it, it acts as a baking pad and it keeps it from rolling all over. But not everybody has these fancy things, so what do you do if you don't have those fancy things? And I'm going to show you my mom's trick. She used to take a piece of wax paper. In this case, I'm using parchment paper. It's a non-stick deal. I'm going to take that second round of dough that I made, because yesterday I made a recipe that made 2 crusts. And again, I've got my little disc here, and the more evenly I flatten my disc, the more easy it's going to be to make my pie. Oops. This dough is still a little bit dry, so we're going to add a little bit of moisture to it, just like I did the other one. There we go. Get just a little bit of moisture on there. Keep it a little bit more moist. And again, pie crust is all about the texture. You should be making pie crust often enough to know what good texture feels like. And I can tell this is not good texture yet, because it's still crumbling into the beach sand. And I want it to make a pie snowball. So let's get a little bit of moisture in there. Just one more dipper there. And you'll notice I'm just dipping my fingers into it. I'm not pouring huge teaspoons or anything, just a drop or 2 at a time. And I can feel that this dough is much better. So let's collect all my beach sand. It should stick to itself, which it's doing quite nicely. And then we're going to incorporate those into what we had before. All right, let's see if this will work. And here's the easy trick my mom always taught me. You're going to love this. I don't know if this counts as official pie rule stuff, but my mom always used to just take the pie plate itself and just get it and push down. And if you do that, you start with a fairly even disc, and you'll notice your pie crust is fairly even and round, and then she would flip it and lift the paper off it so that it wasn't sticking, because remember, you just pushed that in there. And then again, we're going to do the same from front to back, front to back, front to back, and we're going to start from the center every time. You do not roll from the edges unless you're, fine-tuning the crust there. And you just push and push and push. Now, at some point, you want to lift the paper up so it's not sticking. Give it a flip. Lift the paper up so it's not sticking. You can see it got like a little bit of a wrinkle on there. We'll straighten that out. And so this goes a lot easier. It doesn't stick. You don't need to flour the rolling pin. Some people say it's not really rolling the pie dough because you're letting the wax paper do the cheating for you. And as you can see, I'm just going to sort of make sure I've got rounded edges. Usually you want to make it a little bit bigger than the pie pan so that you have a little bit of crust to play with for the edges. And then I'm just going to sort of roll it over just a bit to make sure that it's all the same size. And that feels like it's the same height all around. Again, I'm going to lift the paper so it's not sticking. Give it a flip. Oops, now it's sticking a bit. So we're just going to be very, very careful as we unroll it. It sticks to the edges. And you'll notice my surface isn't perfectly smooth, but that's okay because I'm going to take my pie plate. I'm going to put it right over it. I'm going to slip my hand underneath to support it. And then you know that little flipping thing we've been doing? It works really well here too. And then you want to just be very, very careful. You'll notice my fingers are under the paper and onto the pie dough. Taking it away very, very gently. And there we go. Oh no, my pie dough has cracks in it. What do I do? And you just sort of smush your fingers and put them together. If you need a little bit of water to glue it, that's fine. And I got a really big crack there, but I got a little extra piece of dough here. So I'm just going to paste it right on over. It's going to be covered with filling. Nobody's ever going to see it. So we're going to be good. I want to make sure that I have tucked the dough up against the pan everywhere. I may need to lift it, and get a little bit of air out. And again, close up all the holes. Use a little bit of the extra if you need to. That looked like it needed a little extra. There you go. Didn't have to be perfect. And then I'm just going to take my knife and I'm going to just sort of slide the extra edges off there so that my pie looks pretty. I'm going to take all that extra dough off. And I got a section here that didn't get quite covered, so I'm just going to smush a little extra pie dough on it. And I'm going to use my thumbs to pinch it back in. And then again, we're just going to cut those little edges off. And literally, easy as pie. Now, I will put another lesson up showing you how to make fancy pie crust edges. But for now, we've rolled out our pie. We've got it in the pan. It's ready to go. You do want to make sure you take your fingers and you push the dough into the pan because the pie dough has all that fat. Remember, it's going to create those little pops and explosions. And when it explodes, you want it to make sure that it knows that home is right next to the pie pan so that it settles right back into place. We don't want it to shrink. We don't want it to expand. We just want it to stay in place. And there you go, one pie crust ready to be served. See you in school. Bye.